and welcome to the fourth episode of Lessons I Learned. Every Friday in July of 2021, I am highlighting lessons I learned through 5 different jobs. These lessons come from working at Hooters as a Hooters girl, the Walt Disney World Company as a college program lifeguard cast member, full-time lifeguard and recreational coordinator, along with helping Chip and Dale, flight attendant for a domestic airline company, driving instructor and road test examiner for the state of Michigan, along with driving instructor for the state of Florida, along with, last but not least, stay-at-home mom of twins. Please remember these are my own personal opinions, insights, and experiences. So on to today's lesson. Today's lesson comes from working as a driving instructor and road test examiner. Let me start by saying that I grew up in the industry of driving schools and road test examinations. When I was 14 years old, I began working in an office for a driving school and road testing company. I helped with the bookkeeping, including phone calls and scheduling. At 14 years and 10 months, I was part of the second class to officially begin the rollout of the Segment 1 and Segment 2 sessions, in which teens under the age of 18 years old were able to acquire their driving permits. Segment 1 and Segment 2 involved separate classroom sessions. The first segment was more of an advanced curriculum when it came to driving schools. It involved 24 hours of classroom time, along with 6 hours of behind-the-wheel instruction. This meant that before we, as students, received our permits, we were taught by professionals on how to properly drive. Upon completion of Segment 1, a student who's under the age of 18 could then apply for their permit. This meant that they were now legally allowed to drive with a parent, guardian, or licensed adult over the age of 18. Segment 2 was after a student had their permit for a minimum of 180 days. This was an additional 6 hours of classroom instructional time. Without completing Segment 1 and Segment 2, a student under the age of 18 could not obtain their driver's license within the state. Since I was a graduate of the Segment 1 and Segment 2 program, along with working behind the scenes for a state-credited company, I was excited when my husband and I were asked to be in the passenger seat as instructors and examiners. Dexter and I left everything to move from Florida to Michigan to take up this new opportunity. Keep in mind, before we were authorized to teach students in the classroom and behind the wheel, we were required to complete months of intensive training. Our training was provided by the best instructor, who worked with National Highway Traffic Safety Association, NHTSA, and American Driver Traffic Safety Education Association, ATSEA. To my knowledge, our instructor is still traveling around the states providing amazing instruction for new instructors and for those renewing their certificates. Training to become a certified road test examiner involved a week of intensive training provided at the state level. The lesson I learned was to conquer your fear. Teaching teenagers, both in the classroom and on the road, was an amazing experience and one that I will cherish forever. In the classroom, I felt within my element because of my background working in the Florida school system. My specialty was working in the ESE department. Having the knowledge of being a student through Segment 1 and Segment 2, along with the experience I gained working within the public school system, I felt comfortable in helping students gain their independence. The fear set in when I self-doubted myself. I didn't think I would be good enough on the road or live up to the expectations of other driving instructors and road test examiners. I was a young female coming into the male-dominated field. What helped was having Dexter by my side, along with receiving encouragement from my NHTSA and ATSEA instructor. With more experience, I gained the confidence I needed to be the best instructor and examiner that I could possibly be. Here are some stories from the road. Working with students of different backgrounds and age groups taught me much more than I could have ever taught them on the road. My roles and responsibilities became more than just teaching someone how to safely drive, as I was confident for every student I worked with. They opened up about life experiences, which allowed me to apply different teaching techniques. It made driving easier to understand for my students. Each person learns differently. What works for one may not work for the other. By having confidential conversations, I was able to put the core material into relatable formats for my students to unlock. This gave them the keys to conquer their fear of driving. Looking back at my time on the road, the biggest thing I would stress to my students and applicants was to remove the word test. Hearing that word sent shivers down the spines of many who were about to take their test for their permits or for the road tests. I was a horrible test taker, so I understood how they felt. The worst part of working with road test applicants was having to tell them that they did not pass their driving test. I pointed out what they did well on, along with the things that they needed to work on before reapplying. I would say that they didn't fail the test, they learned how not to pass it. I could go on for days how much that I enjoyed working as a driving instructor and road test examiner. I have many stories that I could share, but those are confidential and will always stay near and dear to me. I appreciate each of my former students, road test applicants, and the families I have been able to stay in contact with. I appreciate and adore you all so very much. This takes me to you. Do you have a memorable moment from when you were learning how to drive? If so, share it with me in the comments section or on my social media sites. Thank you so much for jamming with me. I appreciate you all so very, very much. Stay tuned for next week's final episode, the 5th and final of Lessons I Learned, where I will be talking about my time as a stay-at-home mom of twins. So every Friday in July, I will be highlighting jobs that I worked with and the lessons that I have learned. Follow me on social media such as TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, along with listening to the podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you prefer to listen. So until then, conquer your fears.